Your pension was just bet on a coin toss. That's the part they never say out loud. In this room, risk isn't a warning label, it's the product. Orders flicker like moths on glass as spreads breathe in and out. And 3 people hold the oxygen valve. Alex watches the options chain flex like a coiled spring. May maps liquidity pockets the way a card counter tracks tens. Marcus squeezes a stress ball already shaped like tomorrow's headline. The market is quiet until it isn't, and when it snaps, leverage turns nickels into grenades. They hedge, unhedge, double down, then smile for compliance. Algorithms whisper odds. Volatility taxes the impatient and rewards the shameless. A basis point here, a whisper there, and suddenly someone's mortgage is funding a butterfly that won't live till noon. If you think casinos hide in neon, look again. The chandelier is a heat map, the dice are derivatives, and the house edge is called flow. They call it pre-market, but it's really confession hour. Positions mutter their sins before the bell rings judgment. Overnight futures drift like tired gamblers, and somewhere in Europe, a rumor becomes a catalyst with an alias. Alex hunts theta decay the way a pit boss hunts tells, shading risk with collars that look like prudence until they don't. My threads liquidity between market makers, a seamstress stitching bids to offers, so the fabric won't tear under panic. Marcus keeps the odds sheet in his head, waiting tail risk against client appetite and quarterly theater. The board is a blackjack shoe, fed by central banks, headlines, and one strategically leaked PDF. They don't pray for direction. They pray for movement. Because in this room, motion is margin, and margin is breadth. News hits the wire like a dropped stack of chips. An earnings miss, but guidance whispers salvation. Spreads whip, and algos bite their own tails. Alex snaps on a pair trade, long the survivor, short the pretender, balancing exposure on a razor so thin it shaves sleep. My watches a dark pool print like a shadow hand tipping the scales. She reroutes flow, narrows slippage, and the book breathes easier. Marcus speaks in fractions, slicing risk budget into elegant wedges. A croupier cutting cards on a mirror. The first fills land. Partial, then all or nothing. The room warms with the friction of decisions. They aren't clairvoyant. They're statisticians with swagger, gamblers with stop losses, or so they tell themselves, until the wheel skips a number and the table goes quiet. Liquidity thins. The book looks fat until it doesn't, and a small order punches a bruise through 3 ticks. Alex whispers to his screen as if charm could coax a counterparty. May toggles iceberg detection spots a phantom at 19, then masks the approach. Marcus adjusts VAR, like a surgeon tightening sutures, grants 5 basis points of courage, then steals back 4. The bell is close enough to taste. Metallic, adrenal, familiar. And the floor takes on that casino hush before a dice toss, when probability feels like fate in a tuxedo. They aren't chasing wins. They're buying information 1 fill at a time, hoping the price doesn't double before they know the truth. The opening auction loads like a chamber, bids stack, offers stack, and in the gap lives every decision they've ever defended. Alex fixes on the spread, finds a hole, and slices where panic won't bite. My feathers child orders into the swirl, disguising intent with rhythm only she hears. Marcus watches scenario trees bloom, then prune, breathing with the curve of probabilities. For a heartbeat, the room stops. No keystrokes, no whispers, just the hum of servers and a pulse in each throat. Then prints spill. Green first, then red, then a confetti of both. Somewhere a chart breaks. Somewhere a bonus is born, and inside this glass den the house smiles. Flow is theirs, and tonight the dice are loaded with other people's fear. The first 30 minutes carve the day's terrain like a river through fresh snow, edges sharp enough to cut a finger. Momentum fakes north, then trips south, a dealer flashing 1 card and hiding 3. Alex rides the slipstream, trimming winners before they grow teeth. adding to losers only when the tape shows contrition. Mai's execution rhythm turns staccato, odd lots, odd times, teasing sighs through holes that appear and vanish like mirages. Marcus keeps the map in his head, balancing beta and basis, selling delta where gamma pays rent, turning risk into inventory, the way a pit boss turns chatter into silence. A halt blinks on a small cap with a cult following, and 1,000 screens lean forward at once. There's blood in the book, but not all of it is theirs. The trick isn't bravery. It's calibration. How much pain buys how much truth, and whether the truth arrives before the margin clerk does. Compliance pings like a cough in a quiet theater, and the room pretends not to notice while noticing everything. The cult stock reopens crooked, sellers stacked like sandbags, and Alex reroutes exposure through index options. One layer to mute shock, another to rent gamma for the hour. Mai whispers to liquidity, splitting apparent order into a choreography of feints. She masks footprint by alternating venues, dark then lit, fast then slower, never predictable enough to invite a hunt. Marcus dials a quick call. Keep VAR tolerances. Release 2 points for event risk, but claw it back by noon, he says, and numbers fall into rank like chips snapped into towers. Headlines graze the tape. Regulatory inquiry, supply chain kink, a CFO who smiles too much, and sentiment tilts. Here, morality is marked to market. The only sin is a symmetry you didn't price, and the only absolution is a fill that lands where fear can't reach. By late morning, a squeeze blooms where logic should live. Short interest was a fuse, and someone lit a match with a rumor about a partnership that doesn't exist yet, which is to say, it exists enough for price. Alex refuses to chase the tail. He sells upside into the scream, not to be a hero, but to rent hysteria at premium rates. Mai finds a pocket in an obscure venue where offers look tired. She feathers and sighs like a locksmith testing tumblers. Marcus watches correlations break, defensives dancing with cyclicals, high beta pretending to be ballast, and revises the day's story. This is not rotation. This is roulette with velvet gloves. The chart draws a parabola, then wobbles. Chat rooms chant, the tape hisses, and somewhere a terminal pings a margin call. They do not gloat, they collect. The house doesn't cheer when the wheel lands. It simply extends the tray. Noon is supposed to be a lull, but the macro calendar loads a small bomb marked unscheduled remarks. A central banker clears a throat, and basis swaps twitch like startled birds. Alex peels off risk in thin slices, protecting the core like a chef trimming a tenderloin. Mai slows cadence, letting algos reveal their hunger. She sees a footprint too tidy to be retail, and sets a trap of resting bids that look soft until they aren't. Marcus models the voice before the words. Hawkish timbre, dovish caveat, and threads a path that monetizes confusion without marrying a view. When the remarks finally land, they are everything and nothing. Growth resilient, inflation sticky, patience conditional. The market inhales, then exhales through clenched teeth. They roll, they resize, they exhale with it, and the book survives the gust with just enough sail left to matter. Afternoon brings a different weather. Fatigue, disguised as confidence. And then the unexpected. A liquidity vacuum in a mid-cap after a broker withdraws. Spreads widen like doors in a storm. Alex steadies quotes two-sided to earn the right to be paid, and edges sighs where panic leaves crumbs. Mayor becomes a metronome. Post-cancel, replace, until the book relearns how to breathe. Marcus reroutes exposure through sector cousins, building a lattice so one failing beam doesn't take the floor. The firm across the street panics and hits everything, and for a moment, the room hears the sound of risk, unpriced. It's the sound of chairs not moving. Then a buyer appears, just one, but heavy, and the vacuum fills. Prices normalize, not because the story improved, but because stories don't matter when the other side shows up. Survival today was not brilliance. It was inventory, discipline, and the grace to leave some money on the table. By mid-afternoon, the book feels like a tightrope stretched over a rumor mill. A hedge fund whale starts circling their sector basket, flashing size in odd lots that look clumsy until you see the geometry. Accumulate weakness, advertise strength, provoke the copycats. Alex sketches a counter, sell vol, where the smile is overpaying, buy convexity where nobody's looking, and threads it through spreads as if tying a knot underwater. My ghosts across venues, discovering a venue's Q-time sweet spot, where her orders land politely ahead of the herd. She reroutes like a smuggler who knows every alley in a city that keeps rearranging itself. Marcus trims exposures to a shape he can dream about later without waking, slicing correlation risk until the lattice hums. The P&L jitters with caffeine tremors. They're not chasing alpha, they're manufacturing it from frictions and timing, a mill turning market noise into something you can hold for 10 minutes. Then the surprise. A guidance update drops from a supplier 3 nodes up the chain. No press conference, just a PDF with bad margins and worse news. Input costs rise, backlog slips, capex pauses. It's not fatal, but it reshuffles the deck for anyone holding exposed cash flows. Alex rotates the complex, unwinds a butterfly that no longer tells the truth, and erects a calendar where time can do the heavy lifting. My Vedens her split sizes, letting the tide take the small pieces first, then hides the intent inside a pair of innocuous ETFs. Marcus redraws the scenario tree. Base, downside, and a narrow upside that only pays if sentiment forgets quickly. Headlines amplify. Commentators stitch certainty from scraps. Chat rooms froth. They ignore the noise and price the plumbing. Pass-through lags, inventory buffers, guidance games. What matters is the glide path of margins and the stamina of buyers who think they're patient. Liquidity thins where it shouldn't, an old tell that someone big needs out. The tape coughs, then wheezes. Alex resists the savior impulse. He becomes a toll booth instead, quoting both sides at spreads fat enough to be worth the bruise. My built's a ladder of resting orders that look like weather, present but unremarkable, then pulls one rung at a time to usher flow through the gate she chooses. Marcus listens to the crosswinds. Prime brokers tightening financing, borrow fees inching up, a whisper that a risk committee somewhere lost its nerve at lunch. He tightens theirs just enough to feel the seatbelt. The desk eats small losses like vitamins, pays for privilege in basis points, and waits for the moment when urgency knocks. When it does, a block crosses at a discount that tastes like fear. Alex steps in with measured sighs, and for a breath, the market remembers how to behave. Risk arrives wearing a badge, not enforcement. Just investor relations from a flagship client, asking why their exposure seems off benchmark this week. It's a polite interrogation with a clock in the corner. Alex narrates the thesis without selling certainty. Path-dependent payoffs, hedges that breathe, the humility to be wrong quickly. My brings receipts. Execution. Logs, venue mixes. Slippage versus theoretical. Numbers as neat as a surgeon's stitches. Marcus tells the story that matters. Clients don't buy returns. They buy discipline under pressure. He outlines guardrails. Shows how today's chaos bought tomorrow's optionality at a discount. The call ends without applause, which is the best possible review. They return to the screens lighter, not because risk fell, but because it is seen and named. In markets, fear grows in secrecy. Transparency is the cheapest hedge that actually hedges. Into the close, the market offers a final wager, dressed as opportunity. A reweighting imbalance flags in their sector, signaling forced buyers at the bell. It's clean, mechanical, and dangerous if you're greedy. Alex scales a basis trade. Short, the richly priced cousin, long the underloved twin, constructed to melt at 4:01 p.m. like sugar in tea. My choreographs the entries so footprints vanish into the index surge. She times clips to the heartbeat of the auction feed, hiding intent in the choir. Marcus sets a hard ceiling on size and a harder floor on discipline. No heroics, no drift past the plan. The bell approaches. The book tightens. The room narrows to a corridor of decisions. Prints explode in a synchronized bloom, and the spread does exactly what the math promised for once. They don't high-five. They breathe, mark, and flatten. The den grows quiet. The dice return to their felt-lined drawer. And tomorrow starts counting down. Closing prints fade. But the day keeps talking, a low murmur in the wires. P&L settles like snow, soft until you step, and it collapses. Alex walks the fills line by line, measuring what the plan cost against what luck donated, refusing to call either skill. My reconstructs the day's footprints, stitching time to venue to spread, a forensic seamstress proving that intent traveled invisibly enough. Marcus recasts the book in cold light. Heroics, chatroom noise, asking whether today's inventory would survive a midnight gust from a currency cross, or a broker's tightened leash. They treat every basis point as a witness. Who saw what, when, and who's lying by omission. The room smells of tired coffee and warm circuitry. Outside, sirens braid with rain. They are not congratulating themselves. They are sanding edges off mistakes before they harden into habits. Markets forgive nothing, but they sometimes forget. And that amnesia is a window you buy with humility and meticulously labeled risk. After hours pretends to be a hallway, but tonight it's a tunnel with a match at the far end. Earnings from a bellwether everyone owns by accident through indexes and habit. Futures twitch, algorithms stretch like waking cats, and spreads grow cautious. Alex rebuilds the complex with time as ally, rolls out of the money calls into a diagonal that rents hope, while selling impatience. My drops probes into thin books, testing the depth under each print. Her fills come back like sonar, mapping where panic might pool. Marcus frames the night. 3 scenarios, 3 routes to survive, none that require prophecy. The release hits like a door unlatched. Headline fine, guidance muddy, buyback coy. Price gyrates without commitment, then chooses chaos. They lean where the math tolerates. Avoid where pride beckons, and clip basis points as if harvesting rain from air. After hours is not about glory. It's about waking with choices unbroken and inventory that can still become stories. Funding is the gravity traders forget until it yanks the orbit. A prime broker memo slides in. Haircuts nudged wider on a sleepy basket. Margin terms harmonized. A polite way to say the cost of breathing rose a notch. Alex audits leverage like a pilot checks wings in turbulence, clipping exposures that only paid when money was free. My reprises borrow across venues, swapping an impatient lender for a quieter one, saving points the way sailors save wind. Marcus phones the relationship manager with velvet steel. Respect for constraints, clarity about flow, a reminder that the firm is a net giver when others are grasping. Risk is not just price. It's plumbing, the unseen pipes that can burst at 2 a.m. They redraw limits without drama, rehome positions to friendlier balance sheets, and trade the illusion of size for the reality of stamina. Survival again is an optimization problem disguised as etiquette. They pivot to tomorrow's weather. Macro is a chorus of dissonant instruments. Sticky services inflation, soft goods deflation, a labor print that shrugs at models. Alex builds a symmetry in quiet corners, cheap downside where narratives feel invincible, modest upside where fatigue misprices resilience. Mai rehearses the open, scripting slices and pauses, teaching her routes to dodge the hunter's net she assumes will be laid. Marcus writes the day's creed on a notepad. Don't confuse noise with novelty. Pay for time when truth needs it. They debate the shape of the yield curve like it's an autobiography. Who we've been, who we're pretending to be. Outside, the rain backs off, streets rinsed and clean. Inside, the den exhales, not relaxation but readiness. The calm a poker table wears before the first shuffle. Strategy is no speech. It is postured budget and the grace to alter both when facts arrive uninvited. Just when the building seems to settle, a message arrives from Europe like a stone in still water. A mid-tier counterparty is wobbling, rumors stapled to thin facts. Credit spreads whisper wider. Alex inventories exposures with the speed of a practiced fire drill, tracing the tendrils where price could seize. My check settlement chains and reroutes anything that might touch the soft spot. A paramedic clearing pathways before the ambulance appears. Marcus weighs the theater of preemptive action against the cost of public panic. Prudence must look effortless. They tighten where fragility lives, loosen where resilience pays, and draft a note that says everything without saying the word stress. The night reclaims its edge. This is the den's secret. The game does not end. It only mutes between verses. They pack what they can carry, memorize what they cannot, and leave the rest to the thin mercy of midnight news. Dawn arrives thin and metallic, the kind of light that makes numbers look colder. The wobbling counterparty didn't fail overnight, but its bonds woke up 2 points cheaper, and its CDs wears fresh teeth. Alex treats it like a fire break. Contain, don't moralize. Pairing exposures that depend on generous repo. Renting convexity where fear pays premiums on time. My threads the open like a contraband whisper. Splitting orders across venues that don't talk to each other. Dressing intent in odd lot camouflage. Marcus writes a new creed under the old one. We price pipes, not headlines, and reruns the map with funding friction turned up a notch. Futures squint sideways, as if the market can't decide whether to blink or stare. The room smells of wet wool and hot silicon. They speak in fragments and nods, confident only in discipline, which is the boring courage that keeps the roulette ball from borrowing your heartbeat. The number hits. Prices hotter where they shouldn't be. Cooler where models wish they would be. An asymmetry only a bureaucracy could love. Yields twitch, then lunge. Equities inhale risk like it's a dare. Alex doesn't chase the scream. He sells what the crowd wants to buy most, renting their urgency through calls he never intends to keep past lunch. Then buys quiet downside in sectors that grin too hard. My becomes all cadence, post-cancel, replace, riding the microstructure like a rafter, skimming just ahead of slippage while never getting greedy enough to fall in. Marcus trims the sails, lets beta bleed off without scaring the hull, and sketches 3, if then trees that end with inventory, flat enough to sleep on. The tape hisses. Commentators assign motives to machines. The desk ignores both and prices breath itself. How much a second is worth when truth runs faster than compliance email. Chaos chooses a mascot. The wobbling counterparty suspends clearing for select credits, and liquidity drains like a sink pulled from the wall. Spreads yawn, correlations lie, and the safest trade is not being the last believer. Alex flips from hunter to innkeeper. Two-sided quotes, wider doors, charging rent to pass through panic while refusing size that smells like theology. My reroutes settlement chains, dodging the compromised hub with a smuggler's map. She inks EIS that read like haiku, inviting the right counterparties to knock softly. Marcus calls the risk desk and speaks in ballast, not fireworks. We will not moralize flow, we will monetize it. He widens guardrails in one book, narrows in another, and buys time where time is the only solvent. The room hums with strained electricity. They are not brave, they are organized. In a storm, choreography beats courage 9 trades out of 10. By midday, the fear premium fattens enough to tempt mathematics. Alex rents it delicately. Structures a collar that pays if sanity returns, but doesn't bleed them dry if it sulks. Sneaks a calendar where time will erode hysteria into fees. My fin's a tired seller in an obscure venue, a human behind a curtain of auto quotes, and coaxes a block across at a price that feels like forgiveness. Marcus scouts second order risk. Counterparty of counterparty, like looking for smoke inside smoke. He lightens edges that would fray under another headline and leans where forced buyers are inevitable by the close. The desk's pulse slows. The book begins to look like a decision rather than a confession. They are not out of the woods, but the trees are arranged now. Order is a sculpture carved from panic, and the chisel is patience priced in basis points. Into the close, imbalance feeds whisper of forced buying in names nobody loves until an index tells them to. The desk readies a bridge, short the overstuffed cousin, long the starved twin, built to evaporate at 1 p.m. If the world behaves. Alex sizes the pair as if handling nitroglycerin big enough to matter, small enough to live with if the bell misfires. May Times clips to the auction's heartbeat, letting footprint dissolve into the choir. Marcus, metronomic, caps risk with a ceiling that refuses charisma. The final minutes stretch thin. Then prints cascade, orderly for once, and the spread compresses as modeled. They flatten with the precision of a good apology. P&L doesn't sing, it nods. The den dims, not triumphant, just intact. Survival Today bought inventory for tomorrow's stories, and the dice return to their drawer. Still warm, still theirs to load only with discipline. The morning returns with a cleaner sky and dirtier questions. The counterparty wobble hasn't broken, but overnight term sheets learned a new word. Reassessment, and funding now has seams where there used to be silt. Alex inventories convexity, like rations, deciding which hedges deserve oxygen if repo costs stay sharp. Bort ready. Or Mike Holmes the execution diary for patterns that would expose them to predatory flow at the open. She maps the hours when their footprints were loudest and drafts a quieter language. Marcus rebuilds the risk tree with a ruthless eraser, pruning comfort trades, feeding only the positions that buy optionality at same prices. Futures pretend to be serene. Options do not. Somewhere a rumor metastasizes into a chart. Discipline today means choosing boredom over charisma, playing house advantage by refusing the table's applause. They agree on a plan nobody loves, less leverage, more time, and a willingness to look silly until the tape admits who's actually short of breath. Open comes with a grin too wide to trust. Indexes drift higher as if gravity forgot its lines, yet credit spreads refuse the invitation. Alex sells warmth near the money, renting the market's sudden optimism while buying cold, cheap tales where nobody's looking. Basis points flow like quiet apologies. My lets the book breathe through odd lot syncopation, disguising intent in rhythm. She alternates dark and lit routes until the hunters lose interest. Marcus whispers constraints like a mantra. Position limits, stress add-ons, exit routes, turning appetite into posture instead of impulse. A broker slips a hint. A distressed seller is watering a garden of mid-caps in slow motion. The trio nods without smiling. Patience is a yield if you have inventory and lungs. They hold their line, tempting the crowd's confidence to pay them for time. Markets adore momentum. Profit prefers mispricing that can't sprint, only shuffle. Midday, the distressed seller blinks. An off-cycle block at a discount that whispers resignation. Price wobbles, then steadies, as if the market is embarrassed by its own curiosity. Alex becomes a tollkeeper again, quoting two-sided with doors just wide enough to invite grace and repel drama. He scales size like a careful breath. My nets flow invisibly, pairing natural buyers with the block's residue, hiding their kindness inside spread. Marcus shifts correlation risk, offsetting sector bleed, with cousins that carry liquidity like a passport. He trims delta where gamma can work for free. The tape grows honest for 10 minutes, no pageantry, just commerce. And in that window, they turn fear into inventory that doesn't demand a bedtime story. The thrill isn't victory, it's alignment. Price, size, and time finally agree to speak in the same tense, and the book hums like a well-tuned engine at idle. Then a headline refuses to behave. A regulator signals heightened review of market plumbing, language so vague it can be anything and therefore is everything. Liquidity flinches. Alex resizes risk like a tailor with bad news. Cleaner cuts, fewer flourishes, stitches that hold under rain. My rotatas venues toward sturdier pipes, accepting slower fills in exchange for reliability. She halas resting orders with decoys to deflect hungry eyes. Marcus narrates the constraint aloud, so the room can swallow it. Capital costs just widened a notch, and the game now rewards patience priced correctly. They do not fight narrative, they price it. Optionality grows dear, so they rent it only where time is already their friend. The headline fades without a sequel, but the echo remains. A reminder that rules are a second market, overlapping the first. Survival is reading both tapes with one heartbeat. Into the afternoon, fatigue tempts improvisation, the enemy of compounding. A sector peer offers a block at fair terms if they can close in minutes. It's the kind of trade that flatters ego and endangers sleep. Alex sizes a fraction and refuses the rest, buying only what their exit map can carry in a bad hour. My executes with the grace of a disappearing act, letting prints blend into ambient noise. No victory laps, no footprints worth gossip. Marcus locks the day with a creed. We earn by leaving some on the table. The bell creeps closer. The book is smaller, truer, and liquid in the ways that matter. P&L is a quiet nod, not a parade. Outside, the city dries into evening brightness. Inside, they label risks, fold the map, and thank boredom for the yield it paid. In the den, the boldest bet is sometimes to pass, and in voice, the impulse for trying. Settlement day tastes like copper on the tongue. The counterparty wobble never toppled, but it left footprints in every spread like tide marks on stone. And today, those marks are audited by wire and rumor alike. Alex opens the book like a mechanic lifts a hood, listening before touching, checking whether the engine of hedges still hums in the same key as price. My leans up the settlement chains, a choreographer cueing dancers so no limb collides at curtain, letting cash and borrow meet exactly when introductions are cheapest. Marcus drafts a note that doesn't brag, doesn't apologize, but narrates discipline. Risk that bent without breaking. Inventory that could breathe underwater. Returns priced by boredom and punctuality. The city glitters in morning honesty, and for once, the tape is indifferent. Indifference is a kindness. It means no new surprises are charging rent. They are not done. Traders never are. But today's story lands on its feet. Mid-morning offers the market's most dangerous gift, quiet with options expiring. Decay sings in every premium like a lullaby that wants your wrist. Alex skims that song without falling asleep, rolling winners forward by inches, cutting losers before they shape the afternoon's weather. My engineer's disappearances, child orders feathered into indifferent books, small prints that vanish in the folds, so that what the desk believes never becomes what the street can hunt. Marcus balances the book on invisible fulcrums. Factor tilts neutralized, duration prickliness sanded, tail rent reduced where time is already paying them. The screens pulse but do not shout. The commentary reaches for metaphors it has already used this week. In the den, they count the seconds as currency and pay only the ones that earn interest. There is art in ignoring applause you didn't ask for. Expiry should feel like watching a bridge hold, uneventful, then essential. Noon brings the call they knew would come, a client who lived through the same storm but with wetter shoes. What did we really buy this week? They ask. Alex answers in geometry, not poetry. Payoffs that curled towards safety when funding coughed. Convexity rented where panic wrote checks. My screen shares the choreography. Venue mixes, slippage cliffs avoided, The exact seconds when patience outperformed heroics. Marcus folds it together into something better than reassurance. A blueprint for repetition, because one good day is luck, but 3 months of the same posture is process. The client exhales and doesn't say, "Thank you." They say, "Do it again," which is the only compliment that matters. The line clicks dead. The room returns to its hum. In markets, love languages are terse. Approvals and basis points, affection in longer leashes, commitment in capital that sticks around when headlines don't. Afternoon shades toward reflection, which is dangerous if done lazily. Alex lines each mistake on a mental shelf and labels it with a fix, not a story. My rewinds the tape to the places her footprints might have sung too loudly, and drafts a quieter rhythm for the next crowded hour. Marcus revises the rulebook by a line. When credit jitters poison clean narratives, price pipes first, then dreams. Outside, clouds loosen and light finds a newer angle on the same skyscrapers. Inside, risk finds a cleaner angle on the same returns. They are not chasing legends. They are stalking repeatability, the shy animal that eats bonuses for breakfast when cornered. The room smells of cooled coffee and warm plastic. Someone laughs at something ordinary. They aim to keep it that way. Wins unglamorous, losses brief, and the house edge earned by meticulousness rather than myth. The bell approaches with the soft confidence of a dealer shuffling a fresh shoe. They don't need a big flourish, just clean exits and the right leftovers. Alex flattens what should not dream overnight, leaves only positions that earn while sleeping. May sets a metronome of clips that dissolve into the auction's roar, a final slight that turns intention into ambient noise. Marcus closes the book with posture. Limits respected, tails paid, cash where cash prevents apologies. The bell rings. Prints settle like snow. That will not melt till Monday. They sit back without leaning, each aware that luck nodded but did not wave. Outside, Friday unbuttons its collar. Inside, the gambling den clicks to a lower hum, not silent, never silent. The chandelier heat map cools, the dice return to velvet, and the house edge, flow, patience plumbing, remains theirs to defend when the wheel spins again.